Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you today about knowing your worth, protecting your energy, and raising your value. There comes a time in life when you have to step back, not because you're giving up, not because you're being selfish, but because you're recognizing your worth. Some of us are too available. We show up for everyone. We answer every call. We drop everything to accommodate others. And yet, when we need them, they're nowhere to be found. The truth is, when you're always accessible, people stop appreciating you. They begin to assume you'll always be there no matter how they treat you. But when you step back, something happens. People start to realize what they lost. They start to miss your presence, your kindness, your wisdom. They begin to see that you weren't just an option. You were a blessing. Some of you have been running after people, trying to convince them to see your worth. You're over-explaining, overcompensating, over-giving. But it's time to shift your focus. Instead of chasing, start building. Instead of proving your worth, start improving yourself. The right people will see your value, not because you beg them to, but because you've become too valuable to ignore. Don't let people take you for granted. Don't settle for relationships where you're the only one giving. Don't waste your energy where you are only tolerated but never celebrated. Your presence is a privilege. Your energy is valuable. When you level up, when you grow, when you walk away from things that don't serve you, watch how people respond. Some will complain, some will chase you, and some will realize they never deserved you in the first place. So today, make a decision. Be intentional with your presence. Raise your standards, level up your mindset, and remember, when you know your worth, when you carry yourself with confidence, when you stop giving discounts on your value, the right people will start to miss you, and more importantly, you will start to honor yourself the way you deserve. Let them miss you. Raise your value, and watch how life rewards you. There is power in knowing when to step back. Too often, we believe that always being available makes us more valuable, more loved, and more respected. But the truth is, when you make yourself too accessible, people stop appreciating you. Think about the things in life that are rare. Diamonds, gold, luxury experiences. What makes them valuable? It's not just their beauty or their function, it's their scarcity. The harder something is to obtain, the more people desire it. The same principle applies to you. Many of us spend our lives saying yes to everything and everyone. We pick up every phone call, respond to every request, and make sure we are always present for others. But in doing so, we often lose sight of our own needs. We assume that if we're always there, people will love us more. But in reality, people tend to take for granted what they can have whenever they want. If you never step back, if you never create distance, then others will never have the chance to miss you. Think about the relationships in your life. Have you ever noticed that the more available you are, the less effort people make? You might be the friend who always initiates plans, the coworker who always picks up the slack, or the family member who always says yes, no matter the inconvenience. Over time, people start to expect this from you. They start seeing your kindness as a gift and start seeing it as a given. They assume that you will always be there, no matter how little they invest in the relationship. But the moment you step back, something changes. Suddenly, people realize that your presence was not a guarantee. They start to notice the silence where your voice used to be. They feel the absence where your energy once filled the space. And in that moment, they come to understand just how much you brought into their lives. It is human nature to appreciate things more when they are not easily accessible. Think about a favorite song. The first few times you hear it, it moves you. But if you play it over and over again, eventually it starts to lose its magic. The same thing happens with relationships. When you are always available, your presence becomes expected, not cherished. But when you create space, when you step back and allow others to come to you, you increase your value in their eyes. Some people fear that if they stop being constantly available, they will lose relationships. They worry that if they say no, if they take time for themselves, others will move on. But here's the truth. The right people will stay. The people who genuinely value you will not disappear just because you set boundaries. In fact, they will respect you more. They will see that you have self-worth, that you know your value, and that you are not someone who can be taken for granted. On the other hand, those who only wanted you for convenience may start to fade away, and that's okay. When you stop making yourself available to people who only seek you out when it benefits them, you make room for those who truly appreciate you. You shift the dynamic from being someone who is always at the mercy of others' needs to someone who commands respect and appreciation. Imagine walking into a high-end boutique. The atmosphere is different from an ordinary store. There's an air of exclusivity. Not everything is out on display for just anyone to touch. Some items are behind glass and you have to ask to see them. That sense of rarity makes those items feel more special, more desirable. That is the mindset you need to adopt about yourself. You are not something that is freely available to everyone at all times. You are someone with value, and your presence is a privilege. This doesn't mean you should be distant, cold, or unkind. It doesn't mean you should play games or manipulate people. It simply means you should be intentional with your time and energy. If you are always the one reaching out, let others take the initiative for one. If you are always giving, take a step back and see who gives in return. If you feel drained by always being present for others, allow yourself to rest. The people who truly care about you will notice. They will recognize your worth and make an effort. And those who do not, they were never truly valuing you in the first place. So today, make the decision to protect your energy. Be selective about where you invest your time. Let people see what life is like without you always being there. Give them the opportunity to appreciate you, to miss you, to value you. And in doing so, you will raise your own worth, not just in their eyes, but in your own. There is something powerful about absence. When something is always there, always within reach, people tend to overlook its significance. But when that same thing is removed, even for a short while, its value suddenly becomes clear. The same is true with people. Sometimes you have to step back so that others can recognize what you bring into their lives. In life, we often think that being present, constantly available, and always showing up is the best way to maintain relationships. We believe that the more we give, the more people will appreciate us, but that is not always the case. The truth is, when something is too accessible, people stop valuing it the way they should. They get used to it. They assume it will always be there, and over time, they may even begin to take it for granted. Think about a familiar piece of furniture in your home. You see it every day. You walk past it, sit on it, and use it without thinking. You don't spend much time appreciating it because it has always been there. But what happens if that piece of furniture is suddenly removed? You walk into the room and something feels off. You realize how much space it filled, how useful it was, how much comfort it provided. Only in its absence do you truly notice what it brought into your life. The same thing happens in relationships. When you are always present, when you are always the one making the effort, reaching out, giving your time and energy, people may not fully recognize your value. They become accustomed to your presence, assuming that you will always be there, no matter how they treat you. But when you take a step back, when you create space, something shifts. Suddenly, people start to notice what they had. They realize that your kindness, your support, your energy were not things to be taken lightly. They begin to feel the void that your presence once filled. It is easy to fall into the habit of always being available. Many of us are naturally giving. We want to help. We want to be there for the people we care about. And we want to show up when we are needed. But there is a fine line between being supportive and being taken for granted. If you never give others the chance to miss you, they may never fully appreciate you. Consider the way people respond to seasons. When it's summer, we don't think much about the warmth. It's just there, every day, consistent and reliable. But when winter arrives and the cold sets in, suddenly we long for the warmth we once had. We dream about the sunshine, the long days, the feeling of comfort that summer brought. The season didn't change in its value. Our awareness of it did. The same is true with people. When you are always there, people may not recognize what you bring to their lives, but when you step back, they are given the opportunity to reflect, to appreciate, and to realize how much you truly matter. This does not mean you should withdraw from the people who love and respect you. It does not mean you should play games or manipulate others into chasing you. It simply means that sometimes distance is necessary for appreciation to grow. It means that you should not always be the one putting in all the effort. Relationships should be mutual. If you always make yourself available, but others never do the same for you, it may be time to reevaluate those connections. Have you ever noticed that when someone moves away, suddenly people start talking about how much they miss them? When a loved one goes on a long trip, their absence is felt more strongly than their presence was. This is not because they became more valuable. It is because the space they left behind made people realize what they contributed all along. If you feel like people are not appreciating you the way they should, ask yourself, have I given them the chance to miss me? Have I allowed them the space to recognize my worth? Have I stepped back enough for them to understand what I bring into their lives? It can be difficult to step back, especially if you are someone who naturally gives. But remember, appreciation often comes from distance. When you stop being so available, when you create space, you allow others the chance to recognize your worth. You give them the opportunity to step up, to make an effort, to show that they value you. And in doing so, you also raise your own value. You stop being someone who is always expected to be there and start becoming someone whose presence is cherished. You shift from being taken for granted to being appreciated. You remind others and yourself that your time, your energy, and your presence are valuable. So take a step back, allow yourself to be missed, and watch how appreciation grows in your absence. There is something powerful about knowing your worth. Too often we find ourselves chasing after people, seeking their approval and trying to prove that we are good enough. We pour our energy into relationships, friendships, and workplaces where our value is not fully recognized. We convince ourselves that if we just try a little harder, give a little more, or explain ourselves one more time, people will finally see our worth. But the truth is, real value is not in how much you chase, it's in how much you grow. When you understand your worth, you stop feeling the need to run after people. You no longer beg for attention or force yourself into spaces where you are not truly valued. Instead, you shift your focus inward. You work on becoming the best version of yourself. And as you grow, the right people naturally start to gravitate towards you. Think about a great masterpiece, a priceless painting, or a rare gemstone. These things do not chase after people, pleading to be noticed. They simply exist in their greatness, and people recognize their value. The same should be true for you. Your worth does not decrease just because someone else fails to see it. Your value is not dependent on how many people acknowledge you. Instead, it is rooted in your growth, your confidence, and your ability to stand firm in who you are. When you stop chasing, something incredible happens. You begin to attract the right people, the ones who appreciate you, who see your value without you having to convince them. You no longer waste energy on relationships that drain you. Instead, you invest in yourself, in your goals, and in the things that truly matter. It is easy to fall into the habit of seeking validation from others. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to how people respond to us. If they accept us, we feel valuable. If they ignore us, we feel insignificant. But true confidence comes from within. It comes from knowing that you are enough, whether people acknowledge it or not. Consider a tree. A tree does not chase after water, begging the rain to fall. It simply plants its roots deep into the ground, growing steadily, knowing that the rain will come at the right time. Likewise, when you invest in your growth, whether it's through self-improvement, developing new skills, or simply learning to love yourself, you create a foundation that attracts the right kind of people and opportunities. Have you ever noticed that the more you chase something, the more it seems to run away? It happens in relationships, in careers, and in life in general. The harder you try to force something that is not meant for you, the more resistance you encounter. But when you step back, when you focus on yourself, when you grow into the person you are meant to be, things begin to align in your favor. If you constantly feel the need to prove yourself, take a step back and ask, why am I seeking validation from someone who does not appreciate me? Why am I chasing after a place where I am not valued? The right people, the right opportunities, and the right relationships will recognize your worth without you having to beg for it. This is not about arrogance. It is not about thinking you are better than others or refusing to engage with people. It is about understanding that your energy is precious. Your time is valuable. Your heart is not something that should be thrown at people who do not see its worth. When you shift your focus from seeking approval to personal growth, everything changes. You start to feel more at peace. You no longer feel the constant pressure to be enough for someone else. You begin to enjoy your own company, to find joy in your own journey, and to attract people who respect and appreciate you for who you truly are. So stop chasing. Stop trying to convince people to see your worth. Instead, grow. Invest in yourself. Become so strong, so confident, so full of self-respect that the right people can't help but notice. And when they do, they will come to you, not because you beg them to, but because your value is undeniable. There is something about mystery that draws people in. When everything about you is laid out in the open, when there is nothing left to discover, people may start to lose interest. Not because you are not valuable, but because human nature craves curiosity. It is the unknown, the things just out of reach, that make people lean in and pay attention. Too often we feel the need to explain ourselves, to reveal every thought, every plan, and every detail of our lives. We assume that the more people know about us, the more they will appreciate us. But the truth is, when you give everything away too easily, you remove the excitement of discovery. You take away the sense of anticipation that keeps people engaged and interested. Think about a great novel or a thrilling movie. What makes it captivating? It is not that everything is revealed in the first few pages or the opening scene. Instead, details are revealed gradually, layer by layer, keeping the audience intrigued and invested. The same concept applies to life and relationships. If you give away too much too soon, if you make yourself completely predictable, people may stop paying attention in the way they once did. There is wisdom in keeping certain aspects of your life private. Not everyone needs to know everything about you. Not because you have something to hide, but because not everything is meant to be shared with just anyone. When people know every detail of your thoughts, your struggles, your dreams, and your plans, they may start to take you for granted. They might assume they have you figured out, that there is nothing more to learn. But when you hold some things back, when you allow time and trust to determine what you reveal, you maintain a level of respect and intrigue that keeps people genuinely interested. Think about the people you admire. Chances are there is an element of mystery about them. There are things about them that you do not fully understand, questions that remain unanswered. That mystery adds depth to their personality, making them even more fascinating. On the other hand, when someone is an open book, when they share every thought without discretion, it can sometimes lessen the sense of admiration. This does not mean you should be distant or secretive. It does not mean you should build walls or refuse to connect with people. It simply means you should be intentional about what you share and with whom. Not everyone deserves access to every part of your life. Some things should be reserved for those who have earned your trust, those who have proven that they truly value and respect you. When you learn to keep certain aspects of yourself private, you also protect your peace. You prevent unnecessary opinions, criticism, and negativity from influencing your decisions. Not everyone needs to know your next move. Not everyone should have access to your dreams before they become reality. Sometimes the best thing you can do is work in silence and let your success speak for itself. There is also strength in unpredictability. When people always know what to expect from you, they may stop appreciating your uniqueness. But when you keep them guessing, when you maintain an element of surprise, you keep them engaged, they begin to see you as someone worth paying attention to, someone who is always evolving and growing. Have you ever noticed that when something is too familiar, it starts to lose its impact? A song that is played too often loses its magic. A joke that is repeated too many times stops being funny. The same can happen in relationships and interactions. If you are always available, always predictable, always sharing every detail, people may stop valuing your presence in the same way. But when you allow some mystery, when you create moments of absence, when you do not reveal everything at once, you keep people interested and engaged. People appreciate what they must earn. When something is given too freely, it is often undervalued. This applies to respect, to relationships, and to the way you present yourself to the world. When you learn to maintain a sense of mystery, when you resist the urge to overshare, you position yourself in a way that commands attention and respect. So take a step back. Resist the need to explain everything. Allow people to discover you gradually. Let them be curious. Let them wonder. And in doing so, you will create a presence that is not only respected, but also deeply valued. There is something powerful about scarcity. When something is rare, it automatically becomes more valuable. Think about a precious gemstone. Its worth is not determined by how many people want it, but by how difficult it is to find. The same principle applies to your presence, your time, and your energy. When you make yourself too available, when you give too much without hesitation, people may begin to overlook the value of what you offer. But when you learn to be selective with your time and attention, you increase your worth in the eyes of others. It is human nature to appreciate what is not always accessible. People tend to take for granted what they see every day, assuming it will always be there. But when something becomes less frequent, its importance rises. Think about a favorite meal. If you eat it every day, eventually it becomes ordinary. But if you only have it on special occasions, it becomes something to look forward to, something appreciated at a deeper level. The same is true for your presence. When you are always available, when you always say yes, people may stop seeing you as special. But when you choose when and where to give your time, others begin to recognize and value you more. Many people fall into the trap of believing that saying yes to everything makes them more likable or more valuable. They assume that if they are always there for others, they will be appreciated more. But the opposite is often true. When you stretch yourself too thin, when you give without boundaries, people may start to take you for granted. They may assume that you will always be there, no matter how they treat you. But when you learn to say no when necessary, when you choose where to invest your time and energy, you command a higher level of respect. Think about the most successful people in any field. They are not available to everyone at all times. They are selective about where they invest their energy. They do not attend every event, respond to every message, or say yes to every request. Not because they are unkind or uninterested, but because they understand that their time is valuable. They know that in order to be truly effective, they must prioritize what matters most. Your time is your most precious resource. Once you give it away, you can never get it back. That is why it is so important to be intentional about where you spend it. If you find yourself constantly giving to people who do not appreciate you, always being available for those who do not reciprocate, it may be time to reassess your priorities. Being selective with your time is not about being selfish. It is about recognizing your worth and ensuring that your energy is invested in places that uplift and benefit you. It is easy to fall into the habit of overextending yourself. Maybe you feel guilty saying no. Maybe you fear that if you're not always available, people will forget about you. But the truth is, when you create space, when you make your presence something that is not always guaranteed, people learn to appreciate it more. They begin to recognize that your time is valuable, that your energy is not something to be taken lightly. Have you ever noticed how people react when something suddenly becomes unavailable? A product that was once easy to find but is now sold out instantly becomes more desirable. A person who was once always around but has now stepped back is suddenly missed. This is not manipulation. It is simply how value works. When something is readily available at all times, it is easy to overlook. But when it becomes less accessible, its significance grows. This is why it is important to set boundaries. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to you. Not everyone should have the ability to call on you at any time and expect you to drop everything. You have to decide who and what is worth your time. You have to recognize that your energy is a limited resource, and it should be spent on people and situations that truly deserve it. Think about the relationships in your life. Are there people who only reach out when they need something? Are there situations where you are always the one making an effort, but the other person does not do the same? If so, it may be time to step back and reassess. When you stop overextending yourself, when you start being selective with your time, you will notice a shift. The people who truly value you will make an effort to stay connected, and those who only saw you as convenient will begin to fade away. Being less available does not mean being distant or unkind. It does not mean ignoring the people who genuinely care about you. It simply means understanding that your presence should be something people appreciate, not something they expect without effort. When you learn to balance your availability, when you create a sense of exclusivity around your time, you naturally increase your value in the eyes of others. So take a step back, be mindful of where you invest your energy, make sure that your time is going to places that honor and respect you. Because when you learn to be selective with your presence, you will find that people start to appreciate you in a way they never did before. In life, the way you carry yourself determines how people perceive you. Your presence, your demeanor, and the way you interact with others all contribute to the level of respect and value you command. If you do not take yourself seriously, if you treat yourself as ordinary, then others will do the same. But when you set a high standard for yourself, when you exude confidence, strength, and purpose, you naturally encourage others to see you as someone of significance. It is easy to fall into the habit of minimizing yourself, of downplaying your abilities and worth. Perhaps you have been taught that humility means making yourself small, that standing out is something to avoid. But true confidence is not arrogance. It is simply an awareness of your own value. It is knowing that you have something unique to offer and carrying yourself accordingly. Think about the people who inspire you. They do not walk into a room seeking approval. They do not constantly ask if they are good enough. Instead, they project confidence, assurance, and a deep understanding of their own worth. This is not because they are better than anyone else, but because they have decided to believe in themselves. When you carry yourself with that same mindset, when you stop apologizing for who you are and start embracing your strengths, you elevate your presence in the eyes of others. The way you treat yourself sets the standard for how others treat you. If you constantly put yourself down, if you make it clear that you do not see yourself as valuable, people will take that as a cue and respond accordingly. But when you hold yourself to a higher standard, when you expect respect, when you refuse to accept anything less than what you deserve, people begin to treat you differently. Consider the difference between a luxury brand and a bargain item. A luxury brand does not need to convince people of its worth. It does not beg for attention. It does not lower its standards just to be more accessible. Instead, it carries itself with confidence, knowing that those who recognize its value will come to it. On the other hand, a bargain item is constantly trying to prove itself, lowering its price, making itself easily available, hoping that someone will take notice. The truth is, when you carry yourself with confidence and certainty, you naturally attract people who see your worth without you having to convince them. This is why it is important to set boundaries. If you allow people to treat you in a way that does not align with your worth, you are sending the message that you are okay with being undervalued. But when you establish clear boundaries, when you refuse to tolerate disrespect, when you demand a certain level of treatment, you communicate that you are someone who deserves to be taken seriously. Many people struggle with the idea of setting boundaries because they fear that doing so will push others away. But the reality is, the right people will respect you more for it. The ones who truly value you will rise to meet the standard you set. And those who were only in your life because they could take advantage of your kindness will naturally fade away. This is not a loss, it is a gain. Because every time you uphold your worth, you are making room for better connections, for relationships that uplift you rather than drain you. Think about your posture, your tone, the way you present yourself. Are you moving through life with confidence, or are you shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that do not honor you? The way you carry yourself physically and emotionally affects how people interact with you. When you walk with your head held high, when you speak with assurance, when you set clear expectations for how you want to be treated, you create an aura of respect. There is power in knowing who you are and refusing to settle for less than what you deserve. When you establish a presence that commands respect, when you make it clear that you are not someone to be taken lightly, you elevate your value in every space you enter. This is not about being aggressive or demanding. It is about recognizing that you are worth more than being treated as an afterthought. Sometimes people will test your boundaries. They will see how much they can get away with, how much you will tolerate before you push back. It is in these moments that you must stand firm. If you allow disrespect once, it becomes an open invitation for it to continue. But if you set the tone from the beginning, if you make it clear that you respect yourself too much to accept anything less than what you deserve, people will learn to interact with you on your terms. Your presence is your power. The way you carry yourself, the way you respond to situations, the way you set and enforce boundaries, all contribute to how people see you. If you present yourself as someone who is easily overlooked, people will overlook you. But if you walk with purpose, if you set high standards for yourself, if you refuse to be treated as anything less than valuable, you will find that people naturally begin to respect you more. This shift starts from within. It is not about trying to force others to see your worth. It is about embodying it so clearly that they have no choice but to recognize it. When you believe in yourself, when you hold yourself with confidence, when you refuse to accept anything less than what aligns with your value, you change the way people perceive you. So carry yourself like the valuable person you are. Set the standard for how you want to be treated. Walk with confidence. Speak with certainty. Know that you are worthy of respect and do not accept anything less, because when you hold yourself in high regard, the world will follow your lead. In life, the way you present yourself, the way you value your time, and the way you establish boundaries all contribute to how others perceive and treat you. If you make yourself too available, if you give too much without expecting anything in return, people may begin to overlook your worth. But when you step back, when you allow space for others to miss you, when you carry yourself with confidence and purpose, you naturally raise your value in every relationship and interaction. You do not have to beg for attention or prove your worth to anyone. Your presence alone is valuable. And when you start treating yourself that way, others will too. When you stop over-explaining yourself, when you maintain a sense of mystery, when you are selective with your time and energy, people begin to see you in a different light. They start to recognize that your time is not something to be taken for granted, that your presence is a privilege, not an expectation. It is not about being distant or withholding love. It is about understanding that you are not meant to be easily accessible to everyone. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your time, your energy, or your emotions. When you create space, when you set clear boundaries, when you carry yourself with confidence, you naturally attract people who respect and appreciate you. So take a step back when necessary. Allow people to feel your absence so they can truly value your presence. Move through life with an awareness of your worth. Hold yourself to a higher standard and do not settle for anything less than what honors and uplifts you. Because when you embrace your value, when you respect yourself enough to expect the same from others, you will find that the world responds in kind.